time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
I don't want peaks and valleys, man. I want consistency. We've gotten a lot better at that right now. And part of the reason it's taken a little time is because of our youth. But I like our team. I really do. I told you guys that from day one, and my opinion has not changed.
Really tried to do too many one-on-one things in the second half and just got away from being who we were. Fundamentally, my guards made some very poor decisions and had some turnovers. Then it was those guys finally made a couple shots, and when they have a lead like that, you're really in trouble.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We have reached the midway points of the week. Back in Columbia after the trip down to the beach on special assignment yesterday, and a meeting with the Myrtle Beach Sports Club. Had a great time last night. Thanks to everyone. Good to be back here in the capital city with Will Pelagic and the Professor Tom Hayes and Brian Leonard once again behind the bulletproof glass, taking your phone calls. 800-956-7266. Gamecock basketball tonight down in Gainesville to take on a very good Gators team. First time these teams have met since the Gamecocks defeated Florida in Madison Square Garden in the Elite Eight. That win that got the Gamecocks to the Final Four. A magical, magical afternoon in New York it was for the Gamecocks back then. But this is a different USC team and a different Florida team. Clemson, pretty much a no-show in the second half last night at Virginia. We talked about Virginia's defensive prowess, but my goodness, giving up 52 points a game coming in, and Clemson scored 36 and only 13 in the second half.
It had a 23-16 lead with about 6 minutes remaining in the opening half, and they scored 13 points the rest of the game. That was it was for the final 27 minutes, just a stifling Virginia defense and a Clemson offense that got out of its own way. And Pro and I, we were talking about this last night while the game was on, is that, you know, it seemed like so much of their offense, there's so much that can be gained by going to Elijah Thomas, but so much was happening along the perimeter. They were forced into ill-advised shots. They were having empty possessions, and all Virginia did was what Virginia did, is that they extend out possessions. They use the entire shot clock. They get good shots. They make back cuts, and they force you to play a kind of basketball that is prevalent on trying to make shots. And if you don't make shots against them, you have less opportunities to get yourself back in ball games, and they just ran away and hid.
I'm trying to figure out what's worse, you know, because sometimes a team physically dominates you. I think Virginia really makes a team get fatigued mentally.
Yeah.
I thought Clemson just absolutely just checked out mentally once they put that defense on them. It was almost like watching a guy in quicksand and you throwing him the rope and he can't grab it. And Clemson never psychologically got back into that game. Once they got the 10-point lead, I was still on my way home and I said, they hit a 3 up by 10, game over.
Well, you know, Shecky, I didn't see the game because I was tied up with my conversations last night, but just looking at the box score, and the first thing I look at with Clemson these days is Thomas. How much work did he get inside? He only played 15 minutes. He was not in foul trouble. Well, I mean, obviously, coach's decision to sit him down. You watched the game.
Yep.
So was he playing poorly? What was the reason he sat so much?
He wasn't getting the ball.
But I mean, that's not his fault.
That's my point.
I think here's the issue with him. And it's not even an issue with him. I just think that his teammates don't trust him enough. And so much of what Brad Brownell was trying to do was he was trying to find the right matchup, and he kept on using different lineups. He had Scott Spencer in there for a while. He played 13 minutes. He was using David Scarra, which by the way, if I see David Scarra play another minute of meaningful action, like, kill me. I swear. I've got a gun. We got a gun right over here in Brian's. I mean, I don't like to kill the young man like that, but like, what exactly is it you do here? You played 17 minutes. You went 0 of 2. You got no rebounds, no shots, no assists, 1 block. I mean, what are you doing here? I can't. And Amir Sims, credit the young man. 4 of 8. He scored 9 points in 25 minutes, his first career start. That this is building block time for him. This is not something where you can expect the world out of him. But in my mind, Brad Brownell blamed it on himself as far as coaching. But I also think that too much of and to what Pro said, they got inside Clemson's head and forced Clemson to think that they needed to get the lead back all with one shot, and they kept on taking those 3-pointers. They were 3 of 20 from downtown. Like, you have to think that something else is going to have to happen for you on offense. Go inside, play inside out, get mid-range jump shots. Don't jack up 17 missed 3-point shots.
Yeah, well, it's been a team since Brownell took the transfers, the guards in particular, that has thrived and died on the three-pointer. Defense has always been Brownell's calling card, and he's always had, during his time at Clemson, it seems like a signature big man who you could feed inside, who could also play defense, rebound, and block shots. I think about, for example, Landry Noko, who gave him 4 pretty good years. Blossom game,
yes.
Even though he had a nice outside game, could also score inside. And so anyway, they when he took the transfers, they really started relying heavily on the 3-point shot. And seems to me maybe we just don't, maybe we're misreading it. Seems to me like you got a talent like Thomas. And I know in the preseason, Brad told us about having to have a meeting with Thomas sort of and getting his mind set right, and the two of them coming to a meeting of the minds. And this was how he expected him to play, and he wanted to see it. And it looked like for much of the year they have gotten that from him. But I go back to the North Carolina game where they didn't get the ball to him. Now this Virginia game, they didn't get the ball to him very much. How about the Notre Dame game the other day?
Notre Dame, it was kind of the same thing. They went to him early, but not often. And here's maybe it's a fitness issue. Maybe it's something that, Brad is trying to protect him because he's not up to snuff as far as fitness wise. But in my mind, every time the guy catches the ball, he's 50% from the field. I mean, to me, there's something that we don't know about what's going on behind the scenes there. And I'm not trying to create something where there isn't anything, but in my mind, looking at what they did last night on offense, they did not have a kind of plan to win that game. And the problem with relying on 3-point shots, Corn, you can't win on the road like that. You have to be able to diversify your offense because guess what the team is going to do? It's going to use defense, it's going to use the home crowd, it's going to use a suffocating style of play in order to get you off your rhythm. And you need to find other ways to score that are outside of your comfort zone.
I will say this. This is the first game I've watched, at least the second half, where Thomas checked out, as if to say, y'all not going to give me the ball? Okay, fine. I'm not going to exert myself on defense. Now, I'm not saying he deliberately did that, but a big man, if you don't feed him early and he thinks he's got a mismatch, then they just automatically check out.
There's not that many guys in the conference who can cover that guy. You realize that.
Right, exactly.
All right, so Clemson suffers a big loss, really the first resounding defeat for the Tigers this year. They'll see if they can bounce back. They get a few days now. They don't play till Sunday night at Georgia Tech. Meantime, South Carolina down in Gainesville tonight. The Gamecocks 12-7, 3-4. The Gators 6-1, 14-5 overall. And, of course, it's another talented Florida team, not particularly big, 6'9", 6'8", 6'5", 6'2", and 6 feet. But tell you what, Chris Chiozza, this guy he has been the thorn in the backsides of a lot of teams over his years at Florida. He's just a guy that makes plays. He's so fast. He's so quick. He can steal the ball from you. He can pull up the outside and hit the three. He can break you down and get to the rim for a layup. He is so talented, so it'll be key for South Carolina guards to keep him somewhat in check, if at all possible. And then one of the nice surprises for them, the graduate transfer, Igor Kulichov. You got to watch this guy. He's averaging about 14 points and 7 rebounds per game.
He's big. Kevon Allen also in the backcourt is big. And, I'm wondering how Chris Silva is going to go into this matchup because they got a couple of guys on the front line, especially because of the fact that we're wondering how much of whether or not he can get himself to work early, like we were talking about with Elijah Thomas, be very, very key for the Carolina Gamecocks to make that happen.
Okay, we'll be right back here on Sports Talk.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Love to hear from you tonight. Talk about Clemson's loss last night to Virginia, USC's game coming up against Florida. Anything else you want to get into related to the sports scene in South Carolina? We are getting ready for the start of college baseball practice around the state and around the country. Chad Holbrook, first-year head coach at the College of Charleston, will join us a little bit after 7 o'clock to talk about things with the Cougars and getting adjusted to his new surroundings there. We'll have recruiting for you a little bit later on. South Carolina picked up a pair of 2019 commitments today. This morning, Mark Fox Jr., not related to the basketball coach at Georgia,
right,
big offensive tackle from Northwestern High in Miami, he announced a commitment to the Gamecocks. And then early this afternoon, Devontae Davis, defensive end from Georgia Military Junior College out of Silver Bluff, announced a commitment to the Gamecocks. These both kind of came out of left field because
and they just offered the one kid like 2 days ago.
Yeah, they just offered Fox a couple of days ago. Davis, they had been on for a little while, but talking with his coach a little while ago, he too was surprised that he went forward with the commitment at this particular time. But when you think you know, you think you know. Now, in the case of Fox, I talked with him this afternoon, and while committed, he's going to be one of those that continues to be recruited. He's not shutting it down. He's not closing the door on other schools. And he's got some other big-time offers at this point. He's apparently a very good prospect down in Miami. So that one, while committed to South Carolina, and it's good to have him on your board for 2015, that's going to be one the Gamecocks will have to continue to recruit and stay on top of. I mean, you do that anyway, but, I mean, some guys, when they commit, do so with the mindset of, I'm done. This is where I want to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, I might hear from some other people, but I really want to go here. Mark Fox Jr. has never visited South Carolina.
Right.
He won't visit until possibly March, or not then, for summer camp. So I would still say that it's good if you're South Carolina to have a guy like that on board, but it's far from over.
Well, I wonder too, and this is something Pro brought up when we were in the office earlier today, but I'm wondering how much of the onus is placed with what happened in the early signing period this year, whether or not guys are nervous about there being spots involved. I mean, I'm wondering if we're going to see a lot more, I don't want to use the word haphazard, but more of a quick trigger on guys who want to, shut it all down and get at least get their spot. And, I know that there are certain situations where, sometimes even if you do commit, the spot won't necessarily be there for you if, say, they get something else and that they want or something else at the position. Mm-hmm. But from this perspective, this could be at least some of the first fruits of the fact that guys are reacting to what happened in the early signing period last year and saying, I don't want to get left out.
Well, I was also saying that I thought it was a feeling that everything is done for a reason, if you think that. And maybe as these 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 big fish corn that's coming in to visit this weekend, is there's a message involved saying, look, we're aggressively recruiting guys. And we're looking ahead in the future. And if you want to be a part of this thing after Saturday or Sunday when you leave, how about letting us know what you're going to do?
Well, I think that now we're talking 2 different classes here. Now, the 2 guys today are in the 2019 class. The Gamecocks already have 5 commitments now for the 2019 class. The guys who will be coming in this weekend, they're trying to close up the final spots in their 2018 class, and they've got some good prospects coming in this weekend. I think at least 2 of them, they have an excellent chance to get on signing day, February 7th, but there's still work to be done with those 2. I'm talking about Rick Sandage and Dylan Wanham, because they both have very strong programs pulling them in other directions. They both have ties to South Carolina, which works in the Gamecocks' favor. And I'd say right now, from a recruiting standpoint, the Gamecocks have some strength and they have some momentum coming off a 9-win season, coming off a bowl victory, second place finish in the SEC East. They got some things to sell. Plus, they have the new football building under construction. It'll be open up this fall sometime. The other new facilities that they have built, and a coaching staff that understands about recruiting and the work that needs to go into it, starting with the head coach. I mean, if it starts at the top everybody else follows suit. And I think the Gamecock staff now is in lockstep with the way Muschamp approaches recruiting, which is every day, very aggressively, make the extra phone call, send the extra text message, do what it takes to win the guy over.
Well, another thing is this. We hear the teams, Alabama, now most recently Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Southern California. Yeah, they've got the glamour guys that can catch passes and run the football. But when you look at the base of those teams, they got the meat and potato guys up front, offensive and defensive linemen, which is what South Carolina has been a little bit wary. And that's why they've gone this up and down route. Because if anything, they've been inconsistent at is having dynamic lines of scrimmage.
Yep.
And you can see right now that Muschamp is aiming at those lines of scrimmage.
And they need more offensive linemen. They haven't had great depth on the offensive line where they could roll a second group in and not take a step back in terms of performance. So that is certainly an area that they are trying to shore up. And I mean, look, Eric Wolford is as good as there is in the country, I think, at not only identifying offensive linemen to coach, but then developing them as players.
And it's hard to revolutionize that position in 1 year. I know that there were a lot of people who looked at Eric Wolford as being kind of this guy who had a magic wand, and all of a sudden the offensive line was going to look dramatically different. And injuries and attrition led to the performances that they had this year. I wouldn't say that the offensive line was an ultimate liability, but it was a liability in some games where USC found themselves overmatched, i.e. the Georgia contest, the Clemson contest, and a couple others. Texas A&M, yeah, that's another one. So in that regard, you're still behind where you want to be in terms of competing at the elite level. But now, as you start to get 2-3 years into his tenure and into the tenure of Muschamp as a whole, you can start to find the kinds of guys that are SEC level offensive linemen who can stand up to SEC level defensive linemen. And I think that's the biggest part too, is that not only do you need to find out who can play, but you also need to find out who can practice against the strong defensive line that South Carolina brings in, because that's going to be the biggest litmus test, especially in the spring and the fall. And South Carolina has to figure out not only how to replenish what it had on the defensive line, as they tried also today with the second commitment with Davis there, but obviously they're looking at a situation where they need to compete in the trenches on both sides.
You know, Clemson is down to the end of the road with its class as well, just a couple of more spots to go. There seems to be a growing optimism on the Clemson side of things as it regards Leon O'Neal Jr., the safety out of Texas. And he has been tweeting, of course, he's a regular tweeter, but looking at his Twitter page, he's been sending out some tweets that might indicate that he's not going to stay in Texas. For example, the other day, the old "love my family with all my heart" tweet. Next, wonder who going to ride with me still when this is all over. In other words, sort of setting people up for an announcement that might be that he is leaving the state. We shall see on that. Clemson had him in for his official visit this past weekend with his parents. Second time that the parents had gone with him to Clemson. He was also in with them back in the spring, I believe it was. Oh, here's one more tweet. They can't tell me what's right for me. Only I can. So I think he's maybe, if you read that, now he's also going to visit Georgia, or is scheduled to visit Georgia this weekend. He's a former Texas A&M commit. Very special talent at the safety position, which is an area of need for Clemson in this class. In fact, wrapping up this class and then going into next year, secondary will be an area of high priority for Clemson in recruiting. But if they pull in Leon O'Neal to add to what they've already got, it's just another sparkling gem added to a class full of them at Clemson. Not a large class, but one big on talent, no question about it.
Position that went through a lot of injuries this past season, but one that, because of those injuries, had its depth strengthened by guys who probably weren't expected to play that got meaningful snaps this past season.
Our phone number, 800-956-7266. Any comments you might have about anything we've talked about thus far will be welcomed when we come back from the break. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. The name of the Baseball Hall of Fame inductees, those names just coming out at the bottom of the hour break. Very popular figure in these parts, Larry Chipper Jones Jr., going into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Congratulations to him. That is a great accomplishment. And I don't know, we were talking, did you expect him to go in?
Yes.
I mean, as a
97.2% of the votes. I think
97?
Yeah, 97.2.
I thought it was 92.
It was a typo on the BBW.
He got 97.
Yeah.
That's got to be one of the all-time highest marks. Second all-time?
Griffey had 99.3 last year.
Wow. Now, does that surprise you that he got that kind of vote?
No, he's a guy who benefited a lot from the fancy stats after his career. People loved his WAR. People loved his, again, ability to hit against the fielding independent pitching. This is, again, a lot of very fancy baseball stat talk for you. But it's very much a guy who benefited as more of the guys came out with the steroid stuff. He was a guy who never was really suspected of anything in that regard. So his case kind of got strengthened by guys like McGuire, Sosa, Bonds, who obviously lost a lot of their luster as a result of that talk.
And people don't remember it now, but many years of those years, Corn, he played on the Superstation. They were on every night because it was on Turner. Interesting thing I want to read from you, because the top guy in the draft that year was a pitcher, Todd Van Poppel.
Yes.
And the Braves had elected to take Todd Van Poppel. However, he acted as if he was going to go to college to try to avoid the Braves. Here was Tom Glavine during that time. We all heard that Todd Van Poppel didn't want to play here. So I think we all took it personally, and I think we said, okay, and I won't use the word he used, him. We don't want him to play here. We had young players like Smoltz, Avery, Pete Smith, Lemke, Blauser, Gant, Justice, and the hierarchy said, well, we'll take the shortstop, Chipper Jones, who was recruited as a wide receiver in Florida.
I think he gets a lot of credit, too, for being a switch hitter. The other couple of names that got in, Vlad Guerrero, who I'm surprised did not get in last year. He got 92.9% of the vote. Jim Tomei, a very, very popular first baseman and DH, played for Cleveland, the White Sox, Indians, a whole bunch. He was 89.8%, and also Trevor Hoffman, the sensational closer from the Padres, 79.9%. One who finished just outside of the balloting, Edgar Martinez, the longtime DH with Seattle, 70.4% of the vote. He fell about 20 votes short.
And what kind of progress, or did they regress in the voting in terms of their support? We're talking Bonds, Clemens, McGuire. Anything happening with those?
Very stagnant voting for them. It basically, from their perspective, I don't know if they gained enough ground to be able to get themselves in. And not only that, but so many people, I think, are kind of getting fatigued. I think they went through a big purge of all of the kind of old timey voters last year. So in that vein, I think they've gotten out a lot of the people who initially thought that they were going to get out. Roger Clemens had 45% last year. He made it up to about 57% this year, but still not enough, I would think. And Barry Bonds went from 44% to about 56%. 4 people voted for Clemens who didn't vote for Bonds. Kurt Schilling, who was also on this list, got up to about he had 52.3% last year. He made it to he actually lost a couple of votes. He went down to 51.2% this year. So again, I don't know if they're ever going to get to the point where they get above a certain point to get themselves in. They only got a couple more years, I believe, on the ballot, because they're all, I think, 6 on the ballot. I think they have it goes out to 10, I believe, 10 years on the ballot.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's going to be hard for them to kind of get over that hump. I think we saw this year Edgar Martinez is going to get in at some point. He has one more year, I think, on the ballot. So I think he'll get in. And Mike Messina, who is another guy basically in the Chipper Jones mold, his stats got a lot better as time aged on and a lot more of these fancy stats came out. He's a very big guy on the fancy stats pitches with a lot of the baseball nerds. I think he's a guy who eventually makes it. And he's been on the ballot about 5 years.
So how many of the Braves from their golden era are now in the Hall of Fame?
Well, you got Maddox in there. You got Glavine,
Smoltz.
Chipper.
Chipper.
One guy who barely
Is that it? The four?
I think
one
that's-
guy who
those are the
barely
four?
survived on this year's ballot was Andrew Jones. It was his first year on the ballot. He only got 7.3% of the vote. You need 5 to be able to stay on.
Yeah. Well, all right, there you go. So Chipper Jones going into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Dale Murphy still out there hoping and praying. If he had got, what did he finish with? 499 home runs? Is that right?
399.
399. Okay.
Needed the four.
Yeah. He
and
needed one more to get to
When he
400.
got to that one little flirtation with the Rockies, you figured he'd get one in that thin air. And
Yeah,
he'd have the 400, but he never got the 400.
His skills had deteriorated,
Yes.
greatly by that point. He was nowhere near the player. But he's probably a guy who is somewhat handicapped by playing on those bad teams.
Yes.
For all his individual greatness, playing on those lousy Braves teams, you talk about being on television. Well, that was great, but most people didn't watch or turned them off. Of course, baseball writers, they're watching and they're paying attention, and they know what he was able to do. I mean, from the standpoint of elevating a bad team during a run of bad teams, he should get in just for that, not to mention his own individual numbers. Plus if you're looking for a guy who put on the absolute best image for Major League Baseball at a time when it was starting to go through the bad times, he should get some bonus points for that. But how many votes did he get?
How many votes?
Is he still on the ballot?
Did who get?
Dale Murphy.
He's no longer on the
He's
ballot.
no longer on the
He's
ballot.
subject now to the Veterans Committee.
The other thing that hurt Dale Murphy was not only the fact that the dearth of pitching at the time that the Braves had, but his partner in crime, who could have protected him and did for a few years, could never get over his injury bug, and that was Bob Horner.
Mm-hmm.
When he had Bob Horner batting behind him, he saw a lot of good pitches. But Horner, that girth and that wrist, it cost him a lot of years in baseball, and it cost him a very brief career as he didn't stay in Atlanta long and didn't stay in Major League Baseball as long as he could have.
Oh, absolutely. 800-956-7266. A note on former USC offensive lineman Corey Helms, who tweeted out today that he's undergone some ankle surgery, apparently played on a very bad ankle this year for the Gamecocks. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't miss any games. Did he not play in all the games?
I think he missed the A&M game.
I think he did miss the A&M game. I think there were a couple more in the middle that he was either questionable for or did not play in, dressed but did not play. And it's something where he said he played through pain and he would have done it again. He said he wanted to give all he could to his teammates. But,
this comes out at a time, wasn't he in an all-star game?
He was supposed to be in the East-West Shrine game this weekend, and basically tried to go through practices with the East-West Shrine game. I believe that's played in, not Mobile, maybe that's Birmingham. I'm not sure. Where is that?
It used to be out at Stanford all those many years. I used to love watching that game on a late Saturday afternoon from Stanford, but now I know it's moved east.
It's in St. Petersburg, at St. Petersburg, Florida, with the Tropicana Field there. We actually had it on the network that I worked at in Houston. So
I'm sure you did.
And I was the pregame show host.
I'm sure you were.
Sure remembered it.
I'm sure you did.
But what I'm trying to say is what we're seeing now is that, you'll try to go through the practices, go through the motions, go through the preliminary stuff with talking to coaches and stuff like that. And a lot of times you will opt to try and get yourself better and go through whatever surgery you need to in order to be ready for your pro day, in order to be ready for the real evaluating times that people, for some reason, I don't know why, but why we take more stock in what the guys do when they're wearing their underwear at the combine versus what they actually do on the field, in my mind, is a bit silly, but it's the way of the world.
I've never understood that either. I mean, I've never understood how evaluating a guy, like you said, in his briefs and watching him run on a straight line 40 yards for a couple of days and all that kind of stuff carries as much weight, if not more, than 4 seasons of college football that a guy might get.
I hate covering combines and pro days.
Talk to the Eagles about Mike Mamula.
Yeah.
The workout freak.
All right, we'll be right back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. USC and Florida going to tip it off on the SEC Network. At the top of the hour, our buddy Mike Morgan will be on the call for that tonight on the SEC Network.
You could say he's on the move.
He is on the move, bouncing around, so we'll get his take on it tomorrow night. Steve Spurrier was at the shoot-around today to visit with Frank Martin and say hello to the Gamecocks as he came down from high above at his office there as the what is his position there at Florida now? Being Steve Spurrier?
Probably.
I mean, that is the position, right? Yeah. Being Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, probably fundraising.
But there is an official title for him.
I had it here. Hold on.
There is an official title.
Grand Poobah of the
Well, he must have been reading my mind.
Of the here we are, ambassador.
He
is Ambassador Steve Spurrier. He has an extension and everything.
Yeah. And he's got his own office, the whole deal.
What if we called up Steve Spurrier's phone number at the University of Florida? Would it ring during the day?
Give it a try.
Just try to do that tomorrow.
You never know. Let's go Spurrier. What can I do for you? Recruiting now here on this Wednesday night, as we mentioned at the outset, busy day for South Carolina as they get a couple of commitments for the 2019 class. Offensive lineman Mark Fox, 6'4", 290 from Miami, was offered by the Gamecocks on Monday. He actually committed to Will Muschamp last night and said he has been heavily recruited by offensive line coach Eric Wolford, was impressed with what he's seen and heard from him and from Muschamp. He likes the coaches, thinks they're real, and that they will always be straight and keep the players, as he put it, all right. He said the program is definitely getting better and better. He has never been to USC and said he may join a couple of teammates on a visit March 31st. He can't make it then. He'll definitely be in for a camp in June. Said his size and agility are two things that coaches like about him, strength and speed. Other offers include Florida, Auburn, Ole Miss, Louisville, Georgia, Illinois, Purdue, Central Florida, and others. He said he's not ready to shut down his recruiting. We'll continue talking with other schools. He has visited Georgia, Auburn, Florida, and Alabama. Then this afternoon, USC landed commitment number 2 of the day in defensive end Devontae Davis, 6'5", 250, Georgia Military Junior College, played his high school football at Silver Bluff. Now, he was not a heavily recruited prospect coming out of high school, and he needed to work on his academics. So he went to Georgia Military, which is really one of the outstanding junior college programs in the country, and he improved his recruiting stock. In 9 games last season, he recorded 15 tackles and 5 sacks. And USC, of course, has had a history of success at Georgia Military. You've got current starting left tackle Dennis Daly, incoming defensive tackle Jabari Ellis, and walk-on candidate defensive back Chris Pam, all coming out of the Georgia Military program. And so Davis is a guy that has a good size and good speed coming off the edge. His coach, Burt Williams, tells us that he's a guy that works very hard, has done an excellent job in developing himself as a football player, and has improved his academics to where he'll have a chance to graduate in December. And USC has sort of gotten to the point where if you're a junior college guy, you had better be able to graduate in December or they will let you go, i.e. Marlon Character was a guy they cut loose because he was not going to graduate in December. Last night, USC coaches Bobby Bentley, Lance Thompson, Travaris Robinson went in to see defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina, and he will be in for his official visit this weekend to USC, his last. He's been to Georgia. He's been to North Carolina. Georgia had a bunch of defensive coaches in the night before. And so the visit will tell the tale here at the very end for Rick Sandage. And South Carolina has been recruiting him as hard and as long as anybody. His mother's a USC grad. He went to more games to see the Gamecocks this season than any other school. They've got a lot of things in their favor to get him. But he's been a very kind of impressionable guy. Every stop along the way has always been a good stop for him. He loved his visit to Georgia. Loved his visit to North Carolina.
Well, has there ever been a guy who says they hate their visit, Corn? It's like having successful surgery.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there was a linebacker
One.
from Atlanta several years ago who committed to Clemson sight unseen. This is a very heavily recruited linebacker. Sight unseen, he committed to Clemson. Okay, he committed based on the recruiting being done by the Clemson coaches. So he takes his official visit to Clemson, and he hates it. He's from Atlanta. He's from inner city Atlanta. He decommitted from Clemson, ended up signing with South Carolina because he said, I can't go live in a place like Clemson in terms of it being out in the country. He says, I'm a city guy. I got to be where there's brick and mortar and cars. And I mean, and Clemson is obviously not that to the degree that Columbia is.
Are you trying to say that Clemson is a little too country? Is what you're trying to say?
Well, for him it was.
Apparently.
And he came to South Carolina. Then he ended up transferring to South Carolina State at the end of his career, if I remember correctly.
Personally, the people in the South Carolina-Clemson rivalry, there's good enough people on both sides, I think.
Let's see what else we got for you. USC offered 2019 defensive end Justin Ebogi of Forest Park, Georgia. Did I hear some laughing in the background?
Yeah.
USC also offered defensive end Hakeem Beeman of Chesterfield, Virginia. He's a North Carolina commitment. Clemson offered 2019 offensive lineman Nolan Rumler of Akron, Ohio. He's a Michigan commitment. UConn and Arkansas have checked in on uncommitted receiver defensive back Stephen Gilmore of South Point. Also, Marshall has checked in on him. And in basketball, 6'10" Casey Izagwu, GTA Prep in Ontario, Canada, is working on an official visit to USC. He is looking at the next couple of weeks to a month on getting down to Columbia. That's another one that Frank Martin has been recruiting that we got to keep an eye on here in the weeks to come as a possible for South Carolina's recruiting class. There you go with the recruiting report here on Sports Talk for tonight. Check it out on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag #STRecruiting to take you right to our stories.
The point that I was trying to make is that it does not happen very often. Usually, a lot of times with these guys, they'll say they like the visit because the visit is basically catered to being a love fest.
Actually, there was another linebacker who visited Clemson.
We're talking 2 out of how many?
And
how many recruits do they've recruited over the course of the years?
He did not choose Clemson because, his words, there was no Chick-fil-A on campus. He ended up going to Auburn, being a starting linebacker.
Well, there is a Chick-fil-A there now.
There's one now.
And a Raising Cane's.
But then again, there was one that loved it because they had a soft ice cream machine.
No, that was North Carolina.
Oh, that was North Carolina.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Clemson lost a guy to North Carolina because they had a soft ice cream machine in Chapel Hill in their cafeteria, and Clemson did not. There's all kind of crazy stories out there about why somebody does or does not pick a school.
I went to Missouri because there was an omelet bar. I'm just kidding.
If you hit,
I'm sure you did.
And if you hit the correct button on the soft ice cream machine, the diploma fell out. Let me stop. That was bad.
That was good.
That was terrible.
That's very good.
Yeah,
that's very good.
Okay, we got a few seconds left in the hour. Why don't we waste it? I mean, why don't we welcome Glenn from North Charleston, talking into his wrist. Hello, Glenn.
Well, I got to work out some technical issues with the wristwatch, but, I'm on a better line anyway.
Sounds much clearer tonight. Are you talking into your wrist, or are you on a regular phone?
No, this is a regular iPhone.
Okay.
So,
sounds much better.
But, okay, I know we'll appreciate it. But anyway, guys, I was wondering, is recruiting all year long, or is it just
yes
till February?
And apparently, Phil hates that it's all year, even though he's Mr. Recruiting.
It is all year long. I mean,
is it like for seasons, or
no? It's recruiting knows no seasons, and this is what the coaches and the NCAA have drawn up now. You're going to have official visits beginning in April. April, May, and June are going to be official visit months. Can you believe that? I can't wait for the first coach to have to come off vacation to babysit an official visitor in June. Let's see how he likes that. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
and the professor, Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
They are underway down in Gainesville, Florida. Good game so far. About 3 minutes in, Florida off to the 7-6 lead on South Carolina. Actually, the Gamecocks had the early lead with a couple of threes, and now Florida has come back to take the lead at 7-6. And so we'll keep a close watch on that one for you tonight as it unfolds in Gainesville. All right, how about some college baseball? It is here as teams get back to work on Friday, and about a month or so from now, maybe a little less, we'll have the opening of the regular season all across the country. A lot of changes in our state when it comes to college baseball, some significant changes. Of course, the biggest one, Chad Holbrook leaving South Carolina and landing at the College of Charleston. Mark Kingston replacing him at USC. And Coach Holbrook joining us here on Sports Talk to talk about the beginning of practice, his first formal preseason sessions upcoming with the Cougars. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, Phil. How are you guys?
Good to have you with us once again, and I'm sure everything is going well for you down in Charleston. Do you feel fully adjusted and feel fully morphed into the campus scene at Charleston and part of that program now?
Yeah, I do, and the players have been great. Being on the field each day with those guys has really been a great experience. Excited about the team that we have and the kids that have the opportunity to coach, and we're hopeful and that we can stay healthy and have a big season this year. There's got some talented kids and some guys that are a little bit older and juniors and seniors, and we're hopeful we can put something pretty good together this year and have a good year.
What's your expectations? I mean, you're used to being in programs, North Carolina, South Carolina, where the expectation every year is Omaha. Many times you and the staff where you were delivered, of course, the national championships at South Carolina. How about at the College of Charleston? Do you personally have to kind of dial things down? How do you look at what the expectation should be?
Well, I mean, there's a number of different ways to look at the expectations, no matter where you are. I mean, when I was at South Carolina, I just wanted our teams to play up to their potential and to reach their full potential. And that's no different here. I want our team to reach its full potential. And what that potential is right now, I don't know. As we continue to improve and grow, I'm hopeful that it's going to be one in which we can have the opportunity to get into the postseason and play in the NCAA tournament. I didn't come down here to coach. I wouldn't have accepted the job if I didn't think we'd have a chance to play in the postseason and get into the NCAA tournament. So that's our goal. And if you can get into the NCAA tournament, anything can happen. As we've seen from Coastal Carolina, we've seen from Stony Brook, and some other teams. So we're hopeful we can play ourselves into the conversation and maybe open that door and get into the postseason.
Coach, what, if anything, do you change to your approach going into this, your second head coaching job, that you might have done at South Carolina that you might do differently at College of Charleston?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about coaching in baseball is you learn every day. I learned every day on the job when I was at South Carolina, and I'm going to learn a lot being around some great coaches and neat players and good players and here at the College of Charleston. I'll be honest with you. I mean, baseball is the same sport. It's the same sport in Charleston as it was in Columbia. And, we're going to try to put our kids in the best position to win and try to take care of them and keep them healthy and coach them as hard as we can and try to get in that conversation and win 40-plus games. What I'm going to do differently, I'm just going to be who I am. And I'm not going to look in a rearview mirror and say, hey, this is what I did or what I wish I did. I'm just going to try to win the next game that we're playing or have a great practice the next practice that we're playing and do the best that I can and rely on these great coaches that I have on my staff and hopefully we can do some great things at the College of Charleston. That's my expectation and I believe that's our players' expectation as well.
Well, Coach, be honest with you. The first day you walked into your new digs, were you looking at what kind of bats you had coming back, or you were more concerned at looking at the arms first?
Well, it's probably a little bit of both. I just wanted to know what players we had coming back. I recruited a number of guys. I recruited the free heart, when I was at South Carolina, and I knew of Tommy Richter, the third baseman that we have at College of Charleston that led the league in hitting last year, and I knew of Logan McCray, who is a preseason first-team All-American this year. I knew that, the cupboard wasn't dry. I mean, I knew we had some guys here that can play the game and that were recruited at a high level. I do have some concern about a couple of the injuries that we had in the fall and how they would bounce back. Our starting catcher had shoulder surgery, but I think he's healthy and ready to go. And one of our best pitchers last year, and our closer had a little shoulder procedure as well. So the key as we went through the fall was how those guys bounced back. And but yeah, I mean, it was neat to learn new guys, new players, see what they could do. There's a lot of fresh faces, obviously, and I was a fresh face for them. And I think together we had a pretty darn good fall, and hopefully we'll have an even better spring.
Talking with Chad Holbrook, head baseball coach at the College of Charleston. You mentioned Logan McCray, first-team All-American going into this season, coming off a year of 17 homers, 63 RBIs, 310 batting average. How does he compare as a hitter to some that you have worked with at both North Carolina and South Carolina?
Oh, well, he would play at both of those schools, and we have 3 or 4, I think, that have the ability to play at a high level of Division I baseball. Logan's obviously one of those, and we have a center fielder that's very gifted, a kid named Luke Morgan that had a great summer and played for Scott Wingo in the summer league, and he's been terrific all fall. And a kid named Tommy Richter that led the CAA in hitting last year. So we have some guys that can play at a very high level. Now, are we deep enough? We got to stay healthy. We certainly got to stay healthy on the mound to be able to compete and hold our own against, the South Carolinas and Clemsons of the world. But on any given day, I like our team, and I think we can hold our own, with the teams that are on our schedule. And hopefully Logan can provide that staple in the middle of our lineup and make it very, very difficult on opposing pitchers, because he did have a special year last year. He's a special kid, a 4.0 student. He's a neat kid to coach.
I know you're conditioned, Coach, to say that it's a game like any other, but how eager or reticent were you to schedule that game on May the 9th against your former club at Spirit Communications Park?
Well, I mean, there's going to be mixed feelings and mixed emotions that night for sure. There's a lot of kids in that other dugout that I think dearly of and that I recruited, and obviously think the world of them and their families. And obviously, I'm responsible for the kids that are going to be in my dugout, and I'm going to try like crazy to put them in the best position they can to win the game. But it's not going to be just your ordinary game. It's not going to be just a normal non-conference game, that's for sure. But I scheduled the game because I thought it would be neat for our players at the College of Charleston, and to play in that type of atmosphere in the Pro Park there is a great opportunity for them. It'll be a great experience for our players here at the College of Charleston, and I'm thankful and very appreciative that that Coach Tanner and Coach Kingston agreed to play the game, because it's a heck of an opportunity for the college.
Can we hold you over for a couple of more minutes?
Sure.
You got time? Okay, great. We'll come back to you in just a moment, visiting with Chad Holbrook, baseball coach at the College of Charleston. The Cougars, like everybody else in the country, gearing up for the start of practice. Tomorrow we have a media session with USC coach Mark Kingston and their players, and Monty Lee will be doing the same thing. So time to swing into action. We'll be talking with the folks at Coastal Carolina as well as we get ready for the start of baseball season here right around the corner.
Intended pun there with swing into action?
Actually, no, I talk in puns.
Okay.
When I make a pun, it's usually just part of my vocabulary. 16-10, Florida on top of South Carolina. They are about 7 minutes in. Gamecocks shooting 36%, Gators at 50%, and Henson, Coatser each have a 3 apiece, and that leads the Gamecocks in scoring. Back in a moment.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Welcome back in Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 1610. Florida leading USC, 11:55 to play in the half in Gainesville. We welcome back Chad Holbrook to the program. You keep up with the Gamecocks very much since you moved down to Charleston. You keep an eye on the various programs?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a sports fan, and there's some people that I'm close with at South Carolina and had great relationships with, and think the world of Coach Martin and cheer for him quite often, as I do Coach Staley and Coach Muschamp. So, absolutely, the coaching fraternity is a tight-knit group, and those relationships don't die just because you move on to another school.
What kind of baseball season do you think, knowing the talent the way you do, what kind of baseball season do you think the Gamecocks might have?
Oh, I would think they would be in position to have a great season. Adam Hill's certainly a frontline starting pitcher, and if he's healthy, can do some great things on the weekends for them. But they have some terrific position players, and obviously Carlos Cortez and T.J. Hopkins and Jonah Bride and Madison Stokes and L.T. Tolbert. And there's some gifted baseball players there, and I'm not going to be in the same dugout with them, but I can tell you I'm going to be their biggest fan. I'm going to be cheering for them extremely hard, and hope they have a special year.
Your relationship with Ray Tanner at this time, how would you describe it?
There's nothing, when my relationship, there's nothing I treasure more professionally in my life than my relationship that I had with Coach Tanner, especially when I was at South Carolina, and since I've been real busy this fall, and he's obviously been very busy with his job in football and the great year that they had. We haven't spoken obviously as much as we've spoken in the past, but I'm sure in time we'll be able to sit down and reflect on all the great times that we had together, because while I was at South Carolina, there was nothing I treasured more than my relationship with him, and I anticipate as we move forward here and as life goes on, that relationship will get back to that point. We'll have a stronger friendship as ever.
Many years in coaching in the ACC and in the SEC, and you knew other teams were doing, what kind of personnel they had coming back. Now you enter an entire new conference. Obviously, your focus is on your team, what you have. But do you do any film study, any scouting before the season on what type of opponents you'll be playing in the CAA?
Yeah, we do. I mean, that's one of the neat things about college baseball is scouting of opponents has gotten a lot more sophisticated and detailed than it's been in the past. So, we used to just have spray charts, of our opponents and velocities of pitchers in the past. Even when I was at North Carolina, it was a scouting report written by hand. Now, even in our league, or even now at the College of Charleston, it's very detailed, and we get computerized results of every opponent that we have. We obviously have every opponent we have on tape or on the computer, in which a link we can go watch every hitter we'll face or every pitcher we'll face. And it's not much different than the same type of scouting that we had the last few years at South Carolina.
I know you hate the South Carolina questions because you want to kind of create your own legacy, but as far as looking upon that time fondly, and I mean, is it hard to not have a little bad blood there after the way things ended, or is it something where you just kind of want to create your own legacy with the Cougars and kind of hope that stands the test of time more?
Well, in coaching, when you get in the coaching business, and been around it my whole life with my dad, as he was coaching at Furman and in Gardner Webb, and I grew up in a coaching household, so I understand what happens from time to time in the coaching profession. And I only look back at South Carolina and my time there with incredibly fond memories and incredible accomplishments and incredible kids that I was around. And I wouldn't trade my time there for anything. And, you know, to be able to go to the World Series as many times as we did, and I got to experience 3 national championship series, you know, and an additional 2 super regionals and some SEC championships, SEC Eastern Division championship. And listen, I've been blessed. I'm a coach that's been able to experience things that I could only dream of when I started. And I owe a lot of that to North Carolina, and I owe a lot of that to Ray Tanner in South Carolina. You know, life goes on, and I'm just grateful now for the opportunity I have at the College of Charleston. It's a place that Charleston is where Jen and I and my family wanted to, you know, to retire anyway when my coaching career was over. And now I get to be in the city that I want to spend the rest of my life in and continue to coach baseball. And old Chad Holbrook's a lucky guy, and I've been blessed with the opportunities that I've had, and I've been blessed with the opportunities that are in front of me now, and I couldn't be happier.
Last thing, Patriots Point. Interesting little park out there. How much have you learned about the place and gotten a feel for how the winds play a factor in ball games there? What do you think of the ballpark you'll be coaching in?
Yeah, it's you know, obviously played in it several times, and you know, when I was in South Carolina, and it's a hitter's park for sure. And if you catch it on the right day, it can get out of the ball can get out of there in a hurry. And but on the other end, if the wind's blowing in, it can be difficult. But that being said, I think from a consistency standpoint, it's a hitter's park. It's a park in which you want to recruit kids that can hit the ball out of the park. I don't think you know if you're recruiting kids to play the short game and at Patriots Points, I think you're recruiting incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
We need guys that can on the mound that can sink it and throw strikes and work ahead in the count and get ground balls and keep the ball out of the air. And that's kind of how we're gonna recruit. And I'm lucky to have Coach Toman on my staff to help me recruit. And you know, obviously Coach Nichols from Erskine. We have a great staff. I think we have about 33 or 34 years of head coaching experience on our staff, and they're going to help me every step of the way. And we love being around each other. We love being on the field every day. And I can tell you, I'm as happy as I've ever been coaching baseball. And I'm around some neat kids and some great coaches, and it's a blessing every day. Well, just do me a favor and take care of the Red Hawks of Southeast Missouri State on that opening weekend with a sweep, because we can't have people from Missouri coming down here and getting wins now.
Hey, speaking of Toman, how many trips to Hall's Chop House has he made since he moved to Charleston?
Hey, the big guy loves Halls now, and I'll take him from Halls from time to time, and he loves that ribeye at Halls, that's for sure. But he's been great, and it's been fun to be around him and to be able to you know, tap into the knowledge that he has and that he's learned, not only in his time at NC State and South Carolina, but as the head coach at Liberty. And I can tell you, I'm around some great baseball people, and I'm awfully lucky to have those guys beside me. And yeah, the big guy is a character, and I love him to death. And yeah, we've had many a good meals at Hall's. I tried to order smart, and I eat a few more salads than Coach Toman, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
He loves that ribeye.
Hey, listen, thank you for joining us. Always great talking to you. Wish you guys the best this coming season. Looking forward to seeing you a few times during the year, and we will be back in touch throughout the season. Good luck.
Well, all right, Phil. Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate it, and I hope you'll reach out to us down here as our regular season gets underway.
You got it, sir. We'll do. Thank you. Thank you. Chad Holbrook, coach at the College of Knowledge down in Charleston. Good luck to the Cougars as they begin a new era of baseball. You know, Charleston, they're very proud of their baseball program, and they've had some great coaches come through there, of course, and some very good players come through there. And Chad Holbrook can have this is like maybe the second half of his career. He can have a very successful second half run to his coaching career at Charleston and build a very strong program.
They got Georgia coming to Patriots Point this year, and they also have Coastal Carolina for a midweek matchup there. So it'll be a very interesting non-con for him.
Okay. Let's see. It is 23-18, Florida leading South Carolina.
Gamecocks hanging tough
with 8 minutes to play in the half. Be right back. Once again, we thank Chad Holbrook for joining us here on Sports Talk. Best of luck to him and Jim Toman, the rest of the crew down there. Looking forward to seeing what they can do this season. Looking forward to seeing what Gary Gilmore can do down at Coastal Carolina. They'll begin practice on Friday as well. Of course, the Gamecocks and the Tigers. Winthrop should have a very good baseball team again this year in the Big South. So we'll see what happens around the state as we get ready to welcome baseball back into our lives.
He was refreshingly honest about the South Carolina time. Again, I know it's probably hard for him to not have a little bit of bad blood, and I know that there was obviously, when you have a working relationship with somebody like Ray Tanner, who is as beloved in this sport as anyone and has the skins on the wall, if you will, it's hard to kind of, jive and clash with that. And obviously it didn't end for him the way any of us wanted it to, at least those of us who follow the sport of baseball in this state and it being so fruitful in this state. But at least in the way that it sounds, he has a renewed sense of confidence in himself, and he also has a renewed sense and ability that he can create his own legacy at College of Charleston.
He's always known that he could coach. The key point is I think he's in a more comfortable spot because it got a little bit irritating for his family with some of the things that the fans were saying on the internet and yelling in the stands. And I think from an overall standpoint, he's in a better place right now.
He's trying to say he maybe bit off a little bit more than he could chew from the –
No, I think the expectation level was that why can't he do the same thing that the previous coach could not do? But because people had gotten spoiled. You're not going to see teams winning 22, 23 games in postseason in a row.
Well, it's hard. I mean,
in the NCAA.
Well, it's like we talk about a lot of times with think about North Carolina with Dean Smith and Matt Doherty. I mean, think about the example that Dean Smith set and the fact that you have to be the guy who follows the guy. No one ever wants to be in that position. I think it creates false expectations. It creates an ability that you think just anybody can walk in here and do that job. And I don't want to say that Chad bit off more than he could chew, but I do think that, again, you put yourself in a lose-lose situation when you follow somebody like that at a program like this.
Absolutely. He was in a no-win situation, and he was partially responsible for the success the Gamecocks had in winning the championships, though, of course, most of it belongs to Ray Tanner for his leadership, his recruiting, his in-game decision-making, which was uncanny during that run. Not only then, I mean, remember, Tanner took him to 3 straight College World Series another time. So he had a couple of great runs there. And in the case of replacing a legendary coach, I mean, it is almost impossible. And the good thing from Holbrook's standpoint is that now he's stepping into a situation where the program was broken. They had for whatever reason, it didn't work for the coach that replaced Monty Lee. He had been the pitching coach there, I believe. He got 2 years there, and then they decided to make a change. And so now he walks into a place where it's a rebuild.
Yes.
Now, I mean,
it's a smart hire for them because he's a guy that comes in with a little bit of cachet too.
Well, in his mind, I'm sure he's telling his players and their coaches, hey, we got a chance to do some good things here. I got players, but to the outside, it's a program that was in need of repair. And so now he's got some wiggle room here. He's got some time. Nobody down there should be expecting CAA championships and tournament appearances here off the bat. And thus, if you deliver that, then you are really looked at as a great coach, and I think that puts him in an excellent position.
Well, this is a point I brought up yesterday. It was yesterday or the day before when we were talking about baseball, but I'm wondering what differently Ray Tanner does as part of his, tutelage of Mark Kingston here, because you talked about the fact that Chad Holbrook was going to try to maybe kind of do things his own way and trying to separate his success from, the shadow that Ray casts. And anybody in that position, I'm not trying to say this is a criticism of Ray, but I'm wondering what differently he might do, whether he maybe tries to be a little bit more hands off with Kingston or whether or not he is the same way. It's a hard balance.
Well, I think we talked about this last night, and I think the answer is Tanner's door is always open.
Right.
And Kingston would be wise to use it, to go inside that door if he has a question. Down in Gainesville, Goodwin 30-29, Florida over USC, 4:28 to play in the half. Myers has 10 for the Gamecocks. He continues to stroke the ball extremely well. 3 for 3 from outside. He's got 10 points. Silva was 7 and 7 and 2. You know what the 2 are?
Two fouls.
Yeah. That's not good. I'm sure he's sitting now.
He's on the floor right now.
Well, yeah, I think you're a little bit behind me.
Yeah.
He's probably going to pick up a foul here momentarily. I'm sure if he's got 2 fouls, he's sitting.
Two fouls against Florida's inside in a game like this. If you can stay right there, you're still to the good, because he's making them foul, because every time we look up, Silva's at the foul line.
Yeah, and the thing about it is with Myers, they're using a lot more David Beatty in this game, and he didn't play against Tennessee. So I'm wondering if there's something there where they must have seen something from Beatty in practice, because he's kind of been a proverbial whipping boy from Frank Martin over the course of the last couple of weeks.
Frank's one of those guys, if you perform well in practice, you're going to play.
Right.
He is a guy that he loves to reward great practice play. You give it to him in practice, you're going to play. So Silva sits. He's got 7 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 personal fouls at this point. Myers with 10. Hudson is leading Florida and everybody in scoring. He's got 12. The Gamecocks at 32%. They're 7 of 22. The Gators at 42%. They're 10 of 24. Gamecocks have turned it over 7 times to the Gators 5 times. And let's see, anything else here significant? Yeah, bench points. Boy, Hudson coming off the bench, part of the reason. 18 bench points to 4 for South Carolina. And points in the paint, big differential there. 12 for Florida, 2 for the Gamecocks.
And the other part of this for South Carolina, this is the kind of game that they can win, but they also cannot let up defensively. And also, similar to what we saw last night with Clemson, they cannot fall in love with a 3-point shot. They need to be have a little bit more faith in their interior scoring and their ability to go inside. Again, they won't be able to do much with Chris Silva on the bench, but they need to be able to find ways to get easy shots and easy looks.
A couple of more recruiting items to pass along to you that are important. Jermaine Cousinard, 6'4", from Montverde Prep in Florida, he will announce his decision on Saturday.
He announced an announcement.
USC, Bradley, Illinois, UMass, his biggest offers. I think it will come from one of those. Of course, he visited USC, really liked it. They really like him, but he's from up near Chicago, so you got Bradley and Illinois up near his home recruiting him. So we'll see what happens with that. That'll be on Saturday.
And Frank's former assistant is there.
Also, in football, defensive back Mario Goodrich, Lee's Summit, Missouri, will take an official visit to Clemson this weekend. He has been to LSU and Georgia. So that goes down as another official visit for the Tigers this weekend. Let me see what I've got for them for this coming weekend. Of course, they had a few official visits last weekend, which were very important as they were trying to recruit those defensive backs. So this is another defensive back.
At least some of Missouri getting out from underneath the umbrella of that state program there. Former Kansas City.
Let's see. Who else do I have coming in? Oh, yeah. Tyon Palmer, defensive back from Lawrenceville, Georgia. In fact, Dabo Sweeney is supposed to have his in-home visit with Palmer tomorrow.
Frequent flyer miles for
That's
William
it. Palmer. I've got Palmer, and I've got
this young man
who I just mentioned, Goodrich. Got those 2 coming in for official visits to Clemson this weekend. Got USC down. I think it's with 4 official visits for the weekend. So things are starting to wind down for this second signing day.
I still can't believe your disingenuity in the fact that you hate that there's more recruiting. I can't stand it.
Well, I mean, it's just about the work.
I think he liked the
You
surge.
love the work. You love to do recruiting work more than you love to sleep.
But he liked the surge of all of that stacking up on February 2nd, then having to lurch, and then the next.
I just want to see how this plays out with official visits in April, May, and June. And if guys are going to be making decisions coming off those visits, even though they can't sign until December, we'll see how that works out.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
All right, South Carolina continues to hang in there with Florida in Gainesville, 34-32 with 1:32 to play in the first half. The Gamecocks getting some good minutes from Myers, who leads them with 10. Also, Evan Henson has given the Gamecocks 12 minutes and 5 points thus far. They're doing it right now. They're hanging in, and they're leading without Silva, who's on the bench with 7 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 fouls. 34 all now as Florida has just tied it up, 34 all with 1:18 to play.
Broke a string of almost about 3 minutes without a bucket for the Gators, and this is a point where I think South Carolina, while they're not shooting the ball as well, it's really, really hard to kind of play neck and neck with a group like this with Florida, but you're getting yourself a little bit of hope, and I think that's part of it.
All right, so what happens? Let's say Evan Henson finishes out the year as a starter for South Carolina basketball, and I mean a major contributor here in terms of minutes and what he delivers. So he's now a starter on the basketball team. Now football rolls around next season. I mean, you're Frank Martin. This is your starter. This is your starting small forward or big guard, whatever you want to call him. How do you work this out where you get him back for the beginning? You don't want to wait until January to get one of your starters back. I mean, seriously, that's going to be
I've seen guys do it before, but
you hadn't seen anybody play football and basketball simultaneously when both seasons are going on.
I saw Justin Gage do it at Missouri.
No. Well, Julian Peppers.
He played football and basketball simultaneously while both were going on. He would miss. Which practice would he miss? Would he go to both practices in a day?
He would miss the hoops because he was a better football player.
Yeah.
So he would not practice basketball, but he would play in the games. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Come on.
Are
you serious?
Yeah.
I'm looking at you. Yes.
No, you're not. You're looking at your
Julius
computer.
Peppers did that. What, a year or two at North Carolina?
He played he started the basketball season during the football season.
Julius Peppers.
He started with basketball while football was still going on.
But let's face it.
I find that hard to believe. I don't know how you can practice both and go to class.
This is a stopgap measure with Henson. It really is. Because, he was going to be on the team, but you could tell.
I don't know if he projects to be a starter next season.
But you could see with his athletic ability, even on the basketball
he's got 8 points now, 39-35.
To play
you better make him
that
a starter.
Level. No, my point is, if you can play at that level with those skills he has physically, he looks like he can be a hell of a tight end. And so that's where, if he's going to make any money at the pro level, ain't going to be round ball.
Hey, check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Other basketball tonight around the state. Wofford's at VMI, Furman at Greensboro, Winthrop at Longwood, Upstate at Lipscomb, and Presbyterian at Charleston Southern. Elsewhere in the SEC tonight on a busy Wednesday night for basketball. Well, not so much in the SEC, just one other game. Auburn is at Missouri. Let's go Tigers in that one.
It's both Tigers. So, yeah.
Let's go Tigers.
Tigers.
And also in the ACC tonight, Georgia Tech is playing at Florida State, and it is FSU up 38-31. Boston College playing at Syracuse, Louisville at Miami, NC State at Pittsburgh later on tonight.
If you missed our interview earlier with former USC baseball coach and current College of Charleston baseball coach Chad Holbrook, it is now on our website, SportsTalkSC.com.
All right, so last night, Clemson goes to Virginia, plays the Hoos well for half, and then it just comes apart in the second half offensively, facing that outstanding defensive team that Virginia puts on the floor. And Brad Brownell, after the ball game, shared his thoughts about what took his team down in Charlottesville last night.
Congratulations to Virginia. I thought they played obviously terrific defensively. Thought our kids played really hard, especially the first 20 minutes. I thought we did a lot of good things defensively to bother them. But after the break, we lost some momentum there at the end of the first half offensively, and I think we really tried to do too many one-on-one things in the second half and just got away from being who we were. Fundamentally, my guards made some very poor decisions, had some turnovers. And then it was those guys finally made a couple shots, and when they have a lead like that, you're really in trouble. So just got outplayed today in the second half badly. We're dealing with some things with that, but injuries happen. I'm disappointed because a kid like that, you guys should see personally. Like, he's an unbelievable young man who's been 4 years in our program. He's our leader. He's been working to this point, and he wanted to play on a team that goes to the NCAA tournament. So, I feel bad for him, and it's a terrible way for a kid's career to end. But at the end of the day, we got to figure out a way to play without him, and we're working on doing that. I thought Amir Sims did some good things for us today. For a freshman in there battling, he played as well as anybody. So, we got to make some other adjustments and do some other things to counteract it. I got to figure some things out, but we'll work through that here the next month and a half. No, I think they just played better. I mean, they made a couple things, but it wasn't. They made some great one-on-one plays. They posted. We were switching some, and they posted our switch a couple times and scored. But I think they just locked in better defensively, and the more that the defense started bothering us, we tried to do a little too much on our own and didn't pass the ball enough. I mean, I don't know how many times in timeouts I just said, can we please pass the ball, reverse the ball? And I don't know if we ever got it reversed twice, and that's poor coaching. The other thing I think that you don't realize when you see Virginia, like, they're big. Their guards are big. They have size. They bring tremendous athleticism off the bench. So, this is an older group too that's obviously extremely well coached in what they do, and when they can lock into you, it's hard to execute good offense, especially in this building, because this building, it's a little bit like playing at Clemson football. You come down there, and we raise hell on third down. You come down there, and don't get third down, because you're probably going to have a delay a game penalty. So I think that's about the only thing we didn't have was a delay a game today.
All right, Brad Brownell, after the loss last night at Virginia, it was not a pretty sight for the Tigers in any form or fashion. So they'll try and regroup and get ready to go to Atlanta on Sunday. They'll have a few days to get ready, which will be good, not only from the standpoint of getting a little rest, but it'll give Amir Sims more time with the first team in practice to adjust to his new role, his new responsibilities in replacing Dante Grantham. I think he showed, even though it came in garbage time, he showed last night some offensive skills.
He did.
And the ability to do some things. I mean, he's got good size, got a good body on him. So I think in time he'll be a fine player.
Here's a problem, though. He can't pass the ball the way Dante Grantham did. They missed his court vision. They missed his ability to see things on the floor and his ability to lead when he's not necessarily always doing things, scoring the basketball. And I think they missed that leadership last night. A lot of times they were very, very stagnant. And it's hard when you're on the road. You can't always take a timeout. You can't always burn a timeout. You have to do a lot of changing on the fly, especially when you get into a precarious situation. And that's kind of what happened with Clemson is that, that lead, you look one way, it's 10, and then before you know it, it's 20. And you end up in a situation where you can't get yourself back.
All right, so halftime in Gainesville. Gamecocks up 39-37. Myers has 12 to lead the Gamecocks. Henson has 8. Silva has 7. He does have the 2 fouls. He's the only one of the regulars with 2 fouls. The Gamecocks shoot 38% for the half. Hudson leads Florida with 12. Igor Kulichov has 7. Bassett Hound has 8. No, what is his name? Bassett.
Biggest thing
Dante Bassett has 8.
Biggest thing that stands out to me, only 2 points for Chris Chioza.
Well, here's the other key. Here's the other key, guys. On the road or even at home, Corn, is this the first South Carolina team that has gone from behind and taken a lead when Silva's been on the bench the last 5 minutes of the half?
That's a good sign. Charleston Southern leading PC 19-14. Longwood leading Winthrop at the half 44-41. Wofford over VMI 31-18 at the half. Have yourselves a great night. We'll see you tomorrow here on Sports Talk.